The Antarctic Signal. Chapter 1. The Anomaly. Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent 11 years studying ice cores, but nothing in her training prepared her for the reading that flashed across her monitor at 3:47 a.m. The research station, McMurdo 7, sat on the edge of the West Antarctic ice sheet, isolated by 400 kilometers of frozen nothing in every direction. Elena worked the night shift alone, monitoring seismic data from a network of sensors buried deep in the ice. It was tedious work, mostly noise, the occasional tremor, the groan of glacier shifting under their own impossible weight. But this reading was different. A perfect rectangular shape, nearly 2 kilometers long, sat 3 kilometers beneath the ice sheet. Not a rock formation. Not a cave system. The edges were too straight, too deliberate. She ran the scan twice, certain her equipment had glitched. It hadn't. She called her supervisor, Dr. Marcus Chen, who arrived at her workstation still in his sleep clothes, hair disheveled, coffee untouched in his hand. "Run it again," he said. She did. The shape held its form. Sharp corners. Uniform density readings that no natural ice or rock formation could produce. Something enormous and artificial was buried beneath one of the most remote places on Earth, hidden under 3 kilometers of solid ice that had taken hundreds of thousands of years to form. How long has this been there? Elena whispered. Marcus stared at the screen for a long moment. Based on the ice stratification above it, he said slowly, at least 400,000 years. Maybe longer. Neither of them said what they were both thinking. Humanity, in any form resembling civilization, hadn't existed 400,000 years ago. Chapter 2. The Silence from Above. Protocol demanded they report the finding immediately to the National Science Foundation. Marcus filed the report within the hour, attaching the raw seismic data and Elena's analysis. The response came back in less than 20 minutes, unusually fast for any government agency, let alone one coordinating research from the other side of the planet. Cease all activity related to this finding. A team will arrive within 72 hours. Do not discuss this discovery with anyone outside authorized personnel. This is now classified under Directive 7 Echo. Elena had never heard of Directive 7 Echo. When she searched the station's reference database, she found nothing. It didn't exist in any public record, any scientific literature, any government transparency filing she could access. They knew what to call it before we even told them what we found, she said to Marcus. That's not a directive that gets created in 20 minutes. Marcus didn't answer. He was staring out the reinforced window at the endless white horizon, where the sun refused to set even at 4 in the morning, hanging low and pale over the ice. They've been waiting for this, he finally said. For someone to find it. Chapter 3. The Team from Nowhere. The team arrived by military transport plane, landing on the station's ice runway exactly 71 hours after the report was filed. 12 people disembarked, none of them introduced by name, all wearing unmarked cold weather gear. Their equipment was unlike anything Elena had seen: compact drilling rigs, radiation shielding, and devices she couldn't identify at all. The team leader, a woman with silver-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing, finally spoke to Elena directly on the second day. "You found the chamber," she said. It wasn't a question. "I found an anomaly," Elena corrected. "Nobody's told me what it actually is." The woman studied her for a moment, as if deciding something. "My name is Dr. Amara Osei. I've spent 22 years looking for this exact signature. Not this location, we didn't know where. But we knew it existed. We knew something was down there." "How?" Osei pulled a tablet from her jacket and showed Elena a series of documents, declassified only decades after the fact, buried in archives most researchers never accessed. Radar surveys from the 1950s. Soviet expedition reports mentioning unexplained density anomalies. A 1968 American reconnaissance mission that had returned with sealed findings and a crew sworn to permanent silence. Every few decades, someone finds a trace of it, Osei said. A magnetic disturbance. A gravitational anomaly. A signal burst that lasts less than a second. And every time, the finding gets buried, because nobody had the technology to actually reach it. Until now. Reach what, exactly? Osei's expression didn't change. That's what we are here to find out. Officially. And unofficially. Unofficially, some of us believe it's not something we buried. It's something that was already here before we existed as a species. Something that's been waiting. Chapter 4. Descent. The drilling took 9 days. Elena was permitted to stay. Osei insisted on it, overruling objections from the military liaison who wanted all original station staff removed. She found it, Osei said. She stays until we understand what it is. The thermal drill cut through the ice in a narrow shaft, wide enough for a single elevator capsule. Elena watched the walls of blue-white ice slide past the viewport as they descended, layer after layer representing thousands of years each, the ice growing darker and denser with pressure and time. At 3 kilometers down, the elevator stopped. Through the reinforced glass, floodlights illuminated a wall, not ice, but something dark and smooth, faintly reflective, like polished obsidian but harder than any material Elena could identify. The excavation team spent 2 more days cutting an entry point. When they finally broke through, the air pressure equalized with a soft hiss, and the chamber beyond exhaled a breath of air that had been sealed for longer than human history could account for. Elena was the 3rd person through the opening, behind Osei and a structural engineer named Dr. Yusuf Rahman. What she saw stole the breath from her lungs. Chapter 5. The Chamber. The room extended far beyond the range of their floodlights, its true size swallowed by darkness. The walls were lined with structures that resembled machinery but followed no engineering logic Elena recognized. Curved surfaces that seemed to flow rather than assemble, seams that appeared and disappeared depending on the angle of light. At the center of the chamber stood a column, roughly the height of a 3-story building, pulsing with a faint blue luminescence that seemed to originate from within the material itself rather than any visible light source. "It's active," Rahman said, his voice barely above a whisper. "After 400,000 years, it's still active." Osei approached the column slowly, her instruments recording everything. Power source unknown.
No radiation signature.
No conventional energy emission we can classify. Elena moved toward one of the wall structures, drawn by something she couldn't articulate. Not curiosity exactly, but a pull, as if some part of her recognized what she was looking at even though her conscious mind had no reference point for it. Her hand hovered near the surface. The moment her fingers came within a few centimeters, the wall responded. Light rippled outward from the point nearest her hand, spreading across the chamber in branching patterns like frost forming on glass, or like neurons firing across a vast biological network. "Elena, step back," Osei said sharply. But it was too late. The light reached the central column, and the entire chamber shifted. Symbols, if they were symbols, bloomed across every surface, geometric and impossibly precise, shifting and rearranging as though the room itself were thinking. A sound filled the chamber. Not a voice, not quite, but something that resolved into meaning inside Elena's mind rather than through her ears. It wasn't language as she understood it, yet somehow she understood it anyway, the way a dream conveys meaning without ever forming words. "Guardians." Returned. Elena's knees nearly buckled. Rahman had already backed toward the entry point, his instruments forgotten. Only Osei remained still, watching the column with an expression that mixed terror and something close to vindication. "It's not a machine," Osei said quietly. "It's a message. It's been waiting to deliver a message." Chapter 6. What was left behind. Over the following weeks, as more of the science team descended into the chamber and painstakingly began to interpret the patterns of light and meaning the structure produced, a picture began to form, fragmentary, uncertain, but undeniable. The chamber was not a weapon, nor a power plant, nor any of the things the military liaisons had hoped to find. It was closer to an archive, a vast repository of knowledge left behind by something that had visited Earth long before humanity existed in any recognizable form. Whether that visitor had been a civilization that rose and fell on Earth itself, or something that arrived from beyond it, the structure offered no clear answer. Its purpose, as best the team could interpret, had been simple: to wait. To wait for a species capable of finding it, understanding it, and being trusted with what it contained. The knowledge held within, translated slowly and incompletely over months, touched on principles of energy, material science, and biology that were decades, perhaps centuries, ahead of anything humanity had developed. Enough to transform civilization. Enough, Osei warned in a private meeting Elena was permitted to attend, to be catastrophically dangerous if released carelessly, or into the wrong hands. "This is why Directive 7 Echo exists," Osei told her. "This isn't the first chamber we've found evidence of. It's the first one we've reached. There may be others, beneath the ice, beneath the ocean floor, in places we haven't looked yet, or haven't looked hard enough." Why hide it from everyone? Elena asked. If it could help people. It could also end them, Osei said simply. Knowledge without wisdom is just a faster way to make the same mistakes. We are not hiding it forever. We are deciding, carefully, what humanity is ready to hold. Chapter 7. The Weight of Knowing. Elena returned to the surface for the last time in the deep Antarctic autumn, when the sun finally began dipping below the horizon after months of endless daylight. She stood on the ice above the shaft, now sealed and disguised beneath a false research outpost that would appear, to any satellite or curious eye, as nothing more than an ordinary weather station. She thought about the 400,000 years the chamber had waited in silence and darkness, patient in a way nothing human could truly comprehend. She thought about the word that had bloomed in her mind the moment she touched the wall, guardians, and wondered whether it referred to whoever had built the chamber, or to whoever might one day be trusted to open it fully. Marcus found her there, bundled against the cold, watching the last sliver of sun vanish beneath the ice. They're reassigning both of us, he said. New posting. We are not allowed to discuss any of this, not with family, not with colleagues, not with anyone. I know, Elena said. Do you regret finding it? She considered the question honestly before answering. No, she said finally. But I understand now why some things stay buried. Not because we are not curious enough to find them. Because we are not always ready for what finding them means. Above them, the aurora began to unfurl across the darkening sky, green and violet ribbons of light dancing in silence, indifferent to the secret sealed beneath the ice below. Somewhere in that vast white landscape, Elena knew, other anomalies waited, patient, ancient, and unclaimed, holding their silence until humanity was ready to listen. Or until humanity found them anyway, ready or not. The end.